been a little fickle.
Yep. Welcome to Marriage Mondays with Nick and Trina Brinson, the lady and the coach. We just want to welcome you here tonight as we go through some topics that particularly help marriage and relationships develop and become better. We just like to thank all y'all for continuing to join us as we bring you these broadcasts on Monday nights. We just want to thank our First Lady and our Bishop and all of the support of the church as we continue to do this endeavor to just bring forth God's word to God's people, and just make your marriage or your relationship what it is.
Yeah, and I will publicly wish my husband a additional birthday wish. He just had a birthday this weekend, Friday. So we celebrated. I think it was a good day.
It was a good day. It was a great day.
He's a little older. He'll always be older than me.
I will.
Yeah. So, but I appreciate him. He's a great guy. And we also have an anniversary coming up.
Yes, we do.
We'll talk about that at the end.
Right.
At the end, we'll talk about that a little bit. All right. So, Machina said, happy birthday. We've got Ann Wilson representing Evergreen coming on strong. Our assistant pastor, Elder Steele, has joined us. So we appreciate you guys. We had a little snafu last week. We still hadn't quite figured out how. We posted to a different church page than this one. But we just decided to kind of look at it as a practice for today's lesson. And so we'll talk. It's a good topic. We wanted to do it live. And hopefully get some feedback from you guys. We feel like it's a relevant topic. And so we just decided we'll keep the same topic and just try it again. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We'll give a few more minutes for people to join in. And while we're doing that, we'd appreciate if you would go ahead and share, maybe tag some folks, anybody that you know that might even remotely be interested in what we're saying. We want to reach as many people as we can that are interested. Tonight's topic is good for those who are just dating, people who are in general dating, even if they don't have a special one somebody. It's a good lesson for them if they have any interest in dating and possibly even building a love relationship with somebody. This lesson will be valuable to them as well today. So go ahead and share. Tag folks, whatever you got to do to get people involved. I don't know if they still watch party. I guess it's the same thing as share almost. But whatever you're comfortable doing, please don't put that on my computer. That makes me nervous. Thank you. All right, so you ready to you got anything else you want to say before we jump into the lesson?
No, we're ready to go.
Okay.
Because we've done it before.
We are well rehearsed. Until we're not. All right, so our topic is protecting your love through life adjustments. And what we mean by that is, I'm not sure if that's the best title for today's lesson, but it's just the one we settled on. We're really talking about different phases that you go through in the process. Seasons, phases, I hate to say stages because stages kind of build on each other. These are phases in ways that your love may manifest. So it's not always the same. Y'all forgive us. We got a little chaos going on in the background, but hopefully it'll be short-lived with the dog and the girls coming home. But that's what we're talking about is those different phases that you go through in love. Sometimes people fail to recognize phases, and they may think one phase is supposed to last forever.
Yep.
And then they're confused when they move into a different phase. And so we want to provide a little education for you so that you will recognize when your relationship moves from one phase into another. And that will empower you to help keep your love growing. And it'll help you know how to protect your relationship and protect your love in that relationship. So that's our goal for tonight's lesson. And we're going to go ahead and get started. People are still joining in. But as always, this lesson is recorded, and we think most people see it recorded rather than live anyway. Mm-hmm. But we do want the live interaction. We want your feedback. We want you to share your thoughts, because chances are what you're thinking, others are thinking as well. And for those that are watching it recorded, we appreciate your thoughts as well. You can type in comments. We do sometimes go back and check look at comments and see if anybody had questions or
just good statements that help the lesson.
Yeah.
Things that you've been through.
Mm-hmm. And even as people watch it after your comments will show up in the as the lesson is going forward. When people watch, they will see those late comments that you left at a later time. So it's still valuable, and we certainly want those included in the conversation. So we're here to help people grow, and you can be a part of that too.
All right. The first season we're going to talk about, and most people really go through this one. It's the stage that we call infatuation.
Mm-hmm.
Where you want to talk about it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. I'll let her talk about it, y'all. Go ahead.
All right. So infatuation is just what most of you know that word to mean. It is when you have that overwhelming attraction to someone. It is when a lot of times what brings couples together in the first place is that physical attraction. It's that sort of chemistry that can build between people. It's what feels good. And it's what a lot of people crave if they're not in a relationship. They want, that feeling of being in love, that feeling of feeling that somebody is special to them and that they are special to someone. It's that euphoria that comes with that new love, that early love. And it can last. It's not just when the relationship is new. That feeling of that euphoria, that infatuation, that natural response. It's an instinct, really.
Right.
That can happen, and it can last for years. Honestly, for some people it doesn't last long. For others, it does. Just, every relationship is different, but it feels good, and it makes you. It's like that saying, "Love is blind." That's basically a description of that phase of infatuation. Is that love is blind, and then people very often don't even recognize the flaws or anything negative about that person that they're so in love with and so infatuated with. And sometimes even if people tell them something, to look out for that person, they may not see it. They may not acknowledge it.
Nope.
Or they may not just even be able to hear it because they're just so in love.
Yeah, in this particular phase, you suspend good judgment when you're dealing with a person because you're so enamored by that person. You just want to be around them all the time. And this is the time when you really study the other person to try to get to know them so you can become closer to them. So you do the little things. You make adjustments. You drop everything to go see what that person wants. You just put yourself out there so you can be in that person's space at any given moment. Yeah. So you take your time and you really try to get to know the person during this phase. And sometimes you see things, but you just don't take heed to it.
You don't have the best judgment during that phase, to be honest. I mean, it's not all, complete blindness. You can still make some good decisions, but it's important for you to understand that phase of love is just that. That's not the only manifestation of love. It's just very often an initial phase of love. And it does go away, but it can return.
It's just like anything new that you buy. At first, you're really excited about it, and then when you get it and it just kind of does the same thing and you don't change, you kind of get used to it. And then you really start to see what it really is all about. Can we go into the next phase?
We can go into the another phase.
Yeah, because they kind of blend. If you really don't know the difference from one phase to another, but time will define itself. Yeah.
Well, and knowing what to look for as you kind of examine your relationship, that can help you recognize what phase of love you're in.
Right.
So another phase we want to talk about
is called fall clear. And that's one that we came up with.
Yeah, that's just what we call it. I mean, we didn't come up with the phase, but we came up with the name of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's when the fog starts to clear.
And that is when you start to see that person for who they really are. Then you start to see, okay, I'm really paying attention to this person, and I'm really trying to decide if I'm going to stay in this relationship with this person or not. And you start to what I call wake up and see, and you start to use maybe some good common sense when you're starting to deal with this person, so you don't get too far into it, and now you're stuck in a relationship that you don't intend to keep. So when you're in here, this is when you decide the person that I'm seeing, do I want to be with them or not?
Well, I think that decision can be made during that phase, but I think the biggest characteristic of this phase is that you're not so enamored with that person that you can't see their flaws. I think the key component to this phase is that their flaws become more visible to you. And like I remember my mom telling me at one point that when you are with a person and you figure out what really irritates you about them, if you multiply that like by 50 times and you can still see yourself with them, then that's something you have to factor in when you're considering marriage. Because if the thing you don't like most about that person is not something that you can stand for that to be intensified, then you're not going to make it. So the advice she was saying is, when you're weighing the pros and cons of this relationship with a person, you think about what irritates you the most about that person. And if that were to become magnified, can you stay with them? If their biggest flaw becomes bigger. And so that's a real question for you to use, like you were saying, to decide about if the relationship is worth keeping or not. If it gets to that point, that's not always a defining characteristic of this stage. Mm-hmm. It's just the fact that you can see it. But that's also a time where you can make that decision of, okay, yes, he eats very loudly. Yes, he snores loudly, very loudly. And if that intensifies, then is that something I can live with? And for me, that answer was yes. So that was the worst thing I could, have a few little quirks. And it was things that I could live with. The good far outweighed the bad. But the difference was I could actually recognize those things being there, whereas before, some of those things I didn't even notice unless somebody else were to point them out to me, during that honeymoon phase.
So what was one of my things that you admired about me that irritated you after the fall cleared?
You just want to talk about me. That's what this is. This is a lead up. Go and say what you want to say. Because you just want to talk about me. It's really what it is.
I'm just saying, what was one of those things that irritated you that you found, okay, this guy is all right. And then the fall cleared and you're like, okay, that bugs me a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Your friendliness.
Okay.
You don't want me to
explain.
Do you want me to elaborate on it? Or you just want your turn to bash me?
No.
Okay.
It's coming. But go ahead.
Okay. So, you were always very friendly to people wherever we go. People met you. And I thought that was a great quality. Everybody likes this guy. He knows everybody. He's popular. Everybody that sees him seems to like him. He don't ever run into people that are his enemy. Everybody we run into, he knows he's friendly with, and they like him. They light up when they see him, and he dap them up and have a good conversation and everything. Well, as time went on, we couldn't go nowhere.
Woo.
And I mean nowhere. We went to Jamaica. Not making this up. We ran into somebody. Either was it on the way or in Jamaica?
I think it was in Jamaica.
I think it was in Jamaica. We ran into somebody he knew, and he had to stop and have conversation with them, which takes away from whatever we're doing, because he gets so wrapped up in the fellowship and the friendship with that person that he forgets I'm over here. He might not even introduce me to the people at all. He may have walked away from me and gotten into a deeper conversation. I'm telling the truth. So that friendliness that I admired so much became it became a problem. It became an irritant. Let's see, we went to Disney World. We ran into people he knew there. I mean, everywhere we go.
Hollywood one time?
Everywhere we go, people know this man. And they always a good old buddy that he got to stop and catch up with. And I finally had to get to the point of pulling on his coattail, like, I'm kind of important right here.
Mm.
Can you at least introduce me to the people? And that was a whole issue for us that we had to go through. But that was one of the things that I admired about you, that when the fog cleared, definitely became a problem. Couldn't go out on date nights without people and him wearing advertisement for wherever he worked or used to work or something, and people having to stop us and talk, and he got to yuck it up, and I'm just sitting there by myself eating.
I stayed there.
Sometimes.
With you.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But that's one of those things that we've had to work through. I had to voice my opinion, make it known.
Right. He
had to be able to hear what I was saying, and so we don't really have that issue as much anymore. He still knows everybody. Everybody knows him. And it's worse now because now they know me too.
Exactly.
In connection with him. So actually, I guess that makes it better. But yeah, since you asked for that criticism.
Well,
but I didn't ask for criticism. This is you.
One of those things that really attracted me to my wife, and to some y'all too, is her extreme intelligence. This woman is very smart. I mean, very intelligent, very well spoken, nice looking lady, beautiful on camera. Some of y'all have pointed that out. But when we after I got, after the fog, I was like, man, this joker know it all. Oh, I can't tell her nothing. Can't nobody else either.
That's not true.
But man, it was almost like whatever it was, she knew a remedy. She knew how to do it better. She knew how to make it do what it do. And I was like, people got a point where, you don't have to do the same thing the way you want it done to get it done, because you were goal-oriented. You like things to be done a certain way by a certain time, and that's what we were.
But don't I be right a lot of the time?
I didn't say you were wrong. I just say you was a know-it-all.
But
it aggravated me. Being a know-it-all aggravates me because people can't tell you nothing. So I had to figure out, was this something that I could live with? And the answer to that question is an emphatic yes. Because most of the time, like she's trying to ask the question, I was going to come to it with the church finger up, that, 90% of the time you are correct in what you're saying.
I appreciate
correct.
your public acknowledgement of that. And that probably will make me a little more compliant, where I don't feel like I have to beat you over the head.
Oh, you've been doing this for a long time.
You ain't got no faith in me.
Ooh.
Come on.
But I take that in stride now and like, okay, maybe her way is doing it better. And I just look at it, and this is something that I've done before, and I'm like, no, but we can't do it like that, no. So that's where we are. I mean, we were there. It doesn't bother me anymore because I know who she is and I love her, and that's just what it is.
Sheena, I think we do live in the same world. I have to agree. I have to agree with you. We need to get together and go out sometime. I think we would have a lot to discuss.
And my boy Wade, he know us and he's laughing and he know the deal.
I believe Wade would be pretty much in agreement with what I have to say.
I'm sure he would, because you're telling him to.
He would. Wade, good people. He know what's up.
He does.
So anyway, I will say that we have learned to work through those kinks.
Right.
But when the fog cleared, we had a very hard time. I mean, those were just two mild things, but we had a lot of things that we had to work through, and it was a lot of arguing about it. It was a lot of disagreement, just hard time coming to a consensus on things. So that's where we really had to learn some skills for marriage.
Right.
And that's a good point to learn those skills, is when that fog starts to clear and you start to see, okay, I love this person, but we got some issues here that we really got to work through.
And
Some
both of us were good people, but at the time, and in certain times, we didn't know if we were good for each other because we knew we were two different entities and we can really exist without the other. But, through, like you say, through learning the skills and getting counseling and going through some mentors, we learned that what we have is a pretty special relationship.
It was worth saving, and
right.
It was worth us learning how to get skilled at making our individualities become strengths in our marriage and not letting those individual characteristics be a weakness or something that would tear the relationship apart.
Right.
And so we've gotten to a point that we'll talk about at stage 4. But before we talk about, well, not stage 4, but the fourth phase that we want to discuss, let's talk about the third phase, which is the love challenge.
You will go through all phases probably in some instant. Go through the love challenges because you may have a love challenge in your fall clearing. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the love challenge is when you face an unexpected obstacle that really can just rock your world. Something you had not even anticipated, hadn't planned for, and it is something that can really just kind of shake your world. Something like a death, an untimely death in particular. COVID was very much of a love challenge on many relationships. Just being stuck at home with your spouse for an extended period of time, that could be a love challenge when you don't, especially if your income is affected and now you're in the house together and you got the, if you allow that anxiety from just the atmosphere with COVID, that's been very real for us as a world, just as a people. That anxiety has been at the forefront of everything, especially throughout 2020. And that can become a burden on your relationship. Not knowing if you're going to have a job or knowing that you've lost your job and not knowing how you're going to get another one. Mm-hmm. I mean, there were a lot of challenges that came with COVID. That fear perhaps that a lot of people had of even catching COVID.
Right.
So those are very real, very real issues that can challenge a love relationship. Another one is job loss. When people were to lose a job, even through COVID or even before that, an unexpected loss of a job or change, having to move. These are big things that can happen in your life that can really challenge your love relationship. And during that time, a couple things can happen. It can tear your relationship completely apart, or you can actually take that time and bond and overcome those obstacles together. And that's why we called it a love challenge. It's a challenge. You can pass it, you can fail it. It can make your relationship stronger, or it can be the death of your relationship. It's a big challenge. And it doesn't necessarily come at any specific time. It can come, while the fog is starting to clear. It can come at a time when you're feeling stable. It could come at a time when you're still on that euphoric high.
Right. And I can think of several situations in our relationship where we had to go through the love challenge. And I think our love challenges actually strengthen us.
I think so too.
A couple that I think of with the death of your brother-in-law.
Yes. That was a
I
big
was there
one.
With you while you were going through that because that was really unexpected. We talking about a 22-year-old, 23-year-old?
Extremely unexpected. He was in his early 20s in college, and it's my sister's husband we're talking about. They had a 2-year-old child at the time. Mm-hmm. It was just out of nowhere. I mean, absolutely out of nowhere. And the fact that you be thinking of some stuff.
Oh yeah, this is.
And for me, I was very close to him. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I've considered him a friend, even though he was my brother. As a brother-in-law, I mean, he was somebody that I really felt connected to. And so when I was in college and we were dating. Yeah. And really, we had just gotten to.
Really?
We were just getting deep into dating to where we were like really feeling like, okay, this is something special.
Yeah,
This
this
is
might
something,
happen.
yeah, this might be real love here. And we were really at that point. And I remember somebody called me, maybe my mom or somebody, and she asked me if you were with me.
Okay.
And I was like, no. She was like, okay, well, just call me back when Kia is with you. And so I waited until he came over. He would usually come over in the afternoons to see me. And when he called, and so he was there when she actually gave me that news. And she knew that he needed to be there when I received that news. And he stayed there with me and helped me deal with all everything. Somebody had to come pick me up and
Yep.
go to the funeral and all that kind of stuff. I couldn't really drive. And or did you?
No, they came and picked you up to take you home.
Right. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Yeah, and so he helped me, get everything together and get prepared and everything. And that was was that the first thing we went through like that?
That's the first thing.
That was the very,
Yeah, the
first big challenge we
Mm-hmm.
went through, and it kind of proved to me that he was there for me. And were you online during that time?
I was.
He was on, yeah, and
Yeah, I was.
and so he really was taking a really big risk, just to be there with me to help me through that. But he made that decision that it was more important for him to be there with me and to stay with me, during that time that was so hard for me.
Right.
So I appreciated that.
And just like the death of my mother, we've been through some financial stuff, and all those things prove that what we have can go through the test of time if you just sit there and pay attention to the life lessons. And we've learned through the years of how to protect this love, even though we've been through some hardships. We've learned to protect this love that we have.
Right.
And I guess we'll talk about that later, how we've learned to protect love. I'll say it at the end.
Okay. All right. So that's the love challenge. And I think it is important to recognize when you're going through a hard challenge like that, recognize that challenge can have potential to strengthen your relationship if you really bond and stick together and be considerate of one another and how you can help each other through that, versus letting that challenge draw a wedge between you. Because that can, on the flip side of that, happen when you turn against your spouse or your spouse is not there for you. When you feel like you need them, it can tear that relationship apart. But it's also an opportunity to strengthen and bring you guys together.
All right. And we're just going to address where we are right now. Right now, our marriage is pretty stable.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're talking, first of all, we're going into let's introduce the phase. I think you're kind of excited to talk about this, huh?
I guess.
Okay, the fourth phase is stability.
Okay. And
that's the phase that you want to talk about it? Because you were excited. I just want to introduce it. You were jumping into what you seemed excited.
Yes, I am. Well, the stability part of your marriage is when you are with that person and, there is, little things the little things don't affect you like that anymore.
Right.
You're able to have an argument and understand that the argument is not one of those things that's going to lead you to divorce.
Right.
Or it's going to be something that calls you to be like, I'm not dealing with this person right here. I'm tired. I'm sick of him. I'm sick of him. And I'm out. You learn to accept the differences,
right,
which is the big thing here, because through those years, you learn that it's your differences that actually cause some of the strife. Mm-hmm. But then at this age and stage where we are, I actually appreciate the differences that we have. That means that she is an individual and I'm an individual, and we bring those differences together. And like we've said on several broadcasts, your differences, if you discuss them and come together, you can come up with something brand new that both of y'all can live with. So that's what I like to say about stability. You get anything?
Do you feel that's the stage we're in now?
I feel like we're pretty stable right now.
Yeah.
I really do.
And honestly, and even, challenges may still come, but for us, we just handle those challenges a whole lot more differently than we did in the past. It's easier for us to be aware of how we can protect our relationship, even as we're going through challenges, even as we deal with each other's flaws. I pretty much know his flaws now, and he knows mine. That just is what it is. If he chooses to work on them, I'll support him in that. But if you don't, then I just understand that's just part of the package that is this greatness.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just sort of a place that we've gotten to, that place of stability. And, and it's a place also where you get to have the return of, which you can have it earlier, but for us, it came at a place of stability to where we had a return of the attraction, the what's that first, the infatuation, that first stage. We have those. It's more, but it's deeper. It's not just infatuation. It's a deeper type of love, and that's the kind of love that can sustain you. And I believe that's the kind of love that gets people to 40 years of marriage or 50 years of marriage, and I think that's what we're well on our way to.
Yep.
Especially considering we have an anniversary next week.
Right.
June 5th. How many years?
99. It's 2001. 21 years. 22 years.
22 years.
22 years.
Or is it 23?
22.
Are you sure?
I am. Very much so.
Okay.
So we've been doing this a while and learning and gathering information that sustain us. And the ultimate place I think you want to get to in your marriage, based on research that we've done, is you want to look at that person as a companion.
Right.
That's the person that, I think of a companion like this, and I haven't talked to her about this, so she might look at me real crazy when I say this. It's like when you have a companion on earth, and if that person at a ripe old age passed before you do, you're like, Lord, let me go, because my better half of me has left this world. And I would like not to be here without them. If we're at a ripe old age, I'm talking like 80, 90s or something like that. Right now we're still pretty young, and if one of us go, that person got to live on.
It was good.
Yeah, it was nice while they were here.
But I'm going on.
Yes, you got to live on. But at that age, 80, 90, that person leave, you done spend all those years of developing something with that person. It might be one of those things like, well, Lord, if you see fit today, I'd much rather be in glory with you than to be here on this earth without that person. But we don't tend to put ourselves in that. That's not a train of thought right now that we're going to live in, because we got a lot of living to do together. And when we get to the point where we can continue to learn how to work on things together and take on a project or go on a mission trip and, just help the world based on our experiences and based on the finances that we have, it'll be a good thing when you say that's my companion,
Well, one thing too that I want to emphasize, you touched on a little bit during that stability phase. It's also the time when you as a couple can look at what you together can contribute to the world.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's sort of what we're doing, even with this Marriage Mondays with Marriage Ministry, which we've done Marriage Ministry for a while. I gotta sneeze. I'm sorry. Excuse me. We've done it for a while. But us being able to give something to the world together as a couple, and it gives us something to work on as a team, and not just there are things that we both do individually to contribute to the community, to build the body of Christ, just to make the world around us better. But we're at a point in our relationship to where we're stable enough that we can reach out and help other people together. So that's a project that we've taken on together. For some people, it may be mission trips. It may be, it could even be the decision to adopt children or foster children, if that's something the two of you decide you want to do together as a couple. It can be renovating a house, even. Anything that you decide that the two of you want to work on together. So it's the process where you kind of get out of just yourself and your relationship, and you use your relationship to affect the world in a positive way.
Right.
That you're being together, and it kind of falls back into your relationship identity. What is the purpose of the two of you being together in a way that's going to make the world a better place? What can you contribute as a couple to the world? And so that's the point that, it's hard to look at that when you're in that first phase of just being so in love. You're not really thinking about that. And of course, when the fog clears, you're just trying to make a decision about, what is this? Do I want this? How do we make this work? And when you're in the love challenge, your focus is overcoming whatever obstacle you're facing together as a couple. But when you get to the point of stability and you have all those things sort of under your belt, and when those things arise, you know how to handle it. But now you can really focus on how can we impact the world.
And all that has to be matured and learned with spiritual development. Because with our spiritual development in the churches when we were younger and seeing spiritual people go through certain things and having certain pastors and mentors in spirituality, we have learned to deal with the things that we go through that scope. It is with the lens of Christ, because I had to learn to love her more than me, and learn how to love, looking at her how Christ sees her, and that allowed me to love her more, even though some of the things that she did bother me, and we went through those phases of I don't know if I want to deal with this anymore in my life. I always was drawn back and prayed about it, and I saw through the lens of Christ. He showed me this is the best thing for you compared to some of the things that you've been through. Look at her. Look at how other relationships were. Look at how this relationship is and that relationship. And I came back to, she's really done nothing to me for me to end the relationship, but just getting through this phase. And I didn't recognize it at the time as a phase.
Right.
I just went through, and I guess we went through.
Yep, yeah.
So the spirituality part of this is what needs to be put on the forefront to help you get through some of these things, to develop through in your marriage.
So we hope that just giving you insights from what we've gleaned from our experience, as well as from the experience of other couples that we've helped or consulted with and over the years, and as well as people that have mentored us. We're hoping that this lesson gives you some insight and gives you a way to look at the things that you're faced with and put them in perspective. Recognize if it's really just a love challenge that you're going through. Don't let your love be lost in that challenge. Recognize that that's the time for you to bond and for you to get through that. If you're so in love and enamored and you can't hear what anybody's telling you about your boo, know that you are in that infatuation stage, and you really do. Sometimes you got to listen a little more, and at least the people who you love and who love you and truly have your best interest at heart. Sometimes you got to listen. You got to listen and trust that they really are looking out for your best interest. In that first phase, that's a dangerous phase. That's a dangerous phase when you're infatuated. And then, of course, the goal is to get to that place of stability.
Right.
So
So with that said, this is almost to end our session. We had a few comments here early on in the broadcast. Let's see. Machine a lot. Lordy, y'all sound like me and Johnny right now. Oh, that's all right, though.
I told you we need to get together.
And Brother Charles Brown said, that's great. Protect the love. Just remember that. Try to protect the love at all costs. And Assistant Pastor Cynthia Golson still says, this is a great session. Love it. Very helpful for single people. Thank you for the support and all that y'all, and staying with us as we went through this broadcast tonight. You got any closing arguments? Excuse me, y'all. Not arguments. Closing comments, like we're in a court or something.
I'm telling you,
closing comments.
I do not. I hope everybody has a great evening. We will be enjoying. I'm very excited. We're going to take a short little getaway for our anniversary. And we will not be here next week on Memorial Day. So we will be with family, and we hope you will be too. So we'll take a week off, and we'll come back after our anniversary trip and maybe share a little bit with y'all.
Right.
Maybe a little bit.
Because some of that ain't none of your business.
Mm-hmm.
But we do love you. And with that said, from the lady and the coach. We love y'all. Good night.